The backyard is where good intentions go to wait. You know what you want it to look like, you've seen it somewhere, saved it, maybe even bought something toward it. But the gap between inspiration and done is where most outdoor spaces live forever, in this suspended state of tolerated ugliness you stop registering because you walk past it every day. The people in this video didn't close that gap by having more money, more space, or more skill than you. They closed it by getting specific about one thing that was actually wrong with their yard and fixing it. Some of these builds cost nothing. One cost $4,500. What they share isn't a budget or a style, it's a decision that the space was going to become something. And then it did. Here are 10 of them. 10. The cone garden. The structure here is called a cone garden, and it's been in active use across East African smallholder farming for decades without getting the attention it deserves in backyard gardening circles. Each ring, made from flexible garden edging or tarpaulin banding, stacked from largest at base to smallest at top, creates a distinct planting zone with root depth proportional to its diameter. It's terraced agriculture at garden scale, the same logic used in the Andes to farm limited flat ground for centuries, compressed and adapted for a single yard. Watering is efficient because moisture cascades down through each layer. Different species at different heights with minimal root competition. What looks like a decorative backyard feature from a distance is a yield system with hundreds of years of agricultural logic underneath it. And once you understand what you're actually looking at, you can't unsee it. 9. The Copenhagen rooftop garden. This uses a capillary irrigation system called kapillærkasser in Danish, largely unknown in English-language gardening. Soil-filled growing bags sit above a sealed water reservoir. Soil-filled tubes draw moisture upward through capillary action, like a straw. No scheduled watering, no drip lines, no forgetting to check on a windy rooftop during a Copenhagen spring that's cold for most of the year. The physical layout also solves a second problem. The arrangement acts as a barrier between young children and a glass structure behind the terrace that could be dangerous to reach. The whole thing was started before the builder fully knew what he was doing, because waiting to feel ready was the exact thing that was going to prevent it from happening at all. That instinct, cart before horse, on purpose, is its own kind of gardening advice. 8. The wheelchair-accessible garden bed. The footprint is 12 by 8 feet, and the functional dimension isn't the length or the width. It's height, clearance, and entry geometry. A wheelchair user's reach envelope is fundamentally different from a standing one. Footrests on most chairs project forward from the front of the frame, which means a solid base panel at the entry directly blocks the most accessible planting zones. Latch hardware matters too. Anything requiring fine grip to operate excludes the people the design is supposed to serve. An accessible raised bed is not just a raised bed at a different height. It requires open knee clearance underneath the working surface, open entry sections without solid lower panels, and simple hardware throughout. When you get those details right, gardening becomes available to someone it wasn't available to before. That's the actual point of the build. 7. The swappable plant trays. This started with free wood and a zero budget, using OSB for the inner trays with drainage holes drilled through. The outer frames are permanent structure. The inner trays are designed to be disposable. When they rot, you replace them. That single design decision unlocks something most backyard planners miss entirely. When your growing medium is modular, you can pull a struggling plant without disturbing what's around it, bring something tender indoors before a cold snap without dismantling anything, and expand your setup without permanent commitment. Most planter builds are fixed infrastructure. This one is a dock. Everything inside is temporary by intention, which makes the outer frames, your positioning, your footprint, your dimensions, decisions you only have to get right once. 6. The Teak wall shelf. Teak, shellac and wax finish, every joint cut by hand, hide glue only. The shelf sits at 4 1/8 inches deep, and the joint design could support considerably more depth without losing structural integrity. It just doesn't need to here. The brackets anchor to a single piece of plywood, which is enough for small plants, but not for anything with real weight. Here's the design principle this demonstrates. A shelf this shallow, this clean, mounted at the right height, completely changes what the wall does. It stops being dead background and becomes a vertical planting zone without announcing itself as a garden feature. When you bring greenery to eye level instead of floor level, the space reads differently before your brain catches up to why. That result, something looking decided rather than added, is what the hand-cut joinery is actually buying you. 5. The Zen Backyard. What reads first here is the restraint. The black bamboo is planted in a contained run to keep it from spreading. The wooden privacy screens divide the space without walling it off. Mexican beach pebbles define the path without hardscaping it. Mixed paving materials, stone rounds, gravel sections, solid pavers, follow Japanese garden tradition where varying texture underfoot is a sensory element, not just a practical one. No single element competes for your attention. What reads as a style is actually a subtractive process. Everything that didn't serve a clear function or sensory purpose got left out. A Zen backyard isn't an aesthetic category, it's a discipline. This installation didn't add Zen details to a yard, it removed everything that wasn't one. 4. The Torii gate bell stand. The yard you just saw is already close to finished, but the best Zen spaces have one object that gives the whole composition a reason to exist, something with weight, with craft, with sound. This is what that object looks like when you build it yourself, all cedar. The horizontal crosspiece is reclaimed telephone pole stock. The joints are mortise and tenon held with wedges, a traditional Japanese joinery method called anuki, rather than fasteners. Show sugiban charring for weatherproofing, then 2 coats of tung oil. One thing no one warns you about before you start, burned wood shrinks, and the mortises open slightly at the end, requiring small shims to make the wedges seat evenly. The copper cap on top was a fix too. Cracks formed during the burning process, and copper solved the water retention problem. In 20 years, the patina will match the ceramic bell it holds. Every solution in this build came from a problem encountered along the way, not from planning that anticipated it. That is the correct sequence for any outdoor piece built to be kept. 3. The Netherlands Rooftop Container Garden. Every element here is in a pot, including a Japanese maple, a 180-liter fish pond with medica fish, ornamental grasses, and climbing plants using a fencing net stapled directly to the back wall so they self-attach without a separate trellis. The rooftop is rated for 250 kilograms per square meter. The pond sits close to the wall to distribute load efficiently. The maple is Acer shirasawanum moonrise. A Japanese maple in a container on a concrete rooftop violates about 5 rules of conventional planting wisdom. It grows there anyway because someone decided it was going to and then managed the environment accordingly. Container gardening's real constraint isn't square footage. It's that every plant has to be an actual decision. There's no ambient ground to fill in passively. That accountability is exactly what makes results look intentional. 2. The Yardistry Greenhouse. The objection to a kit greenhouse is usually quality, that you're trading materials for accessibility. That trade-off is real here. Lightweight twin-wall polycarbonate will eventually lose light clarity under sustained UV exposure in a way that heavy triple-wall glass or tempered panes wouldn't. No hardwired electrical, no thermostat-controlled ventilation, no structural engineer stamp for extreme weather loads. What it does have is heat-sensitive piston arms that open the roof vents automatically as the interior warms. No power required. Over 600 seeds were started in here without supplemental heat. On a cold, fully sunny day, interior temperature hit nearly 90 degrees on passive solar alone. A brick-lined center path adds thermal mass that holds heat into the evening. The whole structure went up in one weekend with 2 people and basic tools. Understanding that specific trade-off before you make it is what actually matters. Lastly, 1. The Cedar Raised Bed. Counter height, fully enclosed, cedar throughout, walnut oil finish applied twice a year. The height isn't an aesthetic choice, it's an access decision. Working a garden bed without crouching changes how often you actually show up to use it, which changes what you grow and how seriously you take it. The enclosure handles deer more cleanly than netting ever would. The bottom planters sit on rollers to move them out of direct July heat. Not strictly necessary, but the kind of specific thinking that makes a build feel designed rather than assembled. Cedar fence pickets from the outdoor landscaping section of any big box store, not the premium lumber aisle, get you the same wood for a fraction of the cost. If the thinking behind this one caught your attention, the material decisions, the drainage, the height logic, raised garden beds are getting a full dedicated video next. That one goes deep. Keep an eye out for it.